They told me, "Stop embarrassing the family," then smashed an entire wedding cake across my shoulders while 200 guests applauded. My brother's voice boomed through the microphone. "Sweet revenge." I just smiled, tasting buttercream and betrayal, because they had no idea I'd already set the trap. The real show would start when those screens lit up with spreadsheets, when sirens wailed outside their precious gala, when federal agents walked through those gold-trimmed doors. They thought I was weak right until the moment their empire started crumbling, one forged invoice at a time. My name is Ava Whitaker, and I spend my days drowning in other people's lies. At 33, I've built my career at Civic Integrity Trust dissecting financial reports, peeling back layers of corporate fiction to find the rotten truth underneath. Nashville's nonprofit sector knows me as the woman who catches discrepancies. Others miss a misaligned decimal here, an inflated community service hour there. The work suits me. Numbers don't pretend to love you while planning your humiliation. The irony isn't lost on me that I grew up in a family built on carefully constructed facades. The Whitaker name carries weight in Tennessee's business circles, thanks to my parents' dual empire, Whitaker and Vale Development, and their newer venture, Sugar Forge Events. They'd trained me from childhood to count money instead of listening to music, to see profit margins instead of beauty. But somewhere between the balance sheets and board meetings, I'd fallen in love with old city maps, with preserving historic markets, with truth. That Thursday afternoon, I sat in my downtown office, fluorescent lights humming overhead while I traced inconsistencies in a tax exemption application. The company claimed 300 hours of community service. Their employee roster showed 12 people. The math was laughable. I flagged it, filed it, and checked my phone. 3 missed calls from my mother. The 4th call came while I was packing up. "Ava, darling." Lila Whitaker's voice dripped with manufactured warmth. "You haven't forgotten about tomorrow night. The family party/product launch." I kept my tone neutral, professional. 7:30 at the estate. 7 sharp. We're unveiling the new artisan line, and Graham expects the whole family present. She paused. "Wear something nice. Press will be there." Press always attended our family gatherings. The Whitakers didn't have private moments. We had photo opportunities. The next evening, I drove through Belle Meade's manicured streets toward my parents' estate, watching October light fade through the windshield. The house blazed with tungsten warmth. Every window calculated to impress. Catering vans lined the service drive. The sweet smell of burnt sugar and butter hit me before I'd even opened my car door. Inside, the kitchen bustled with Sugar Forge staff piping elaborate designs onto 3-tier displays. I noticed invoices scattered across the mail tray, careless for a family obsessed with image. One caught my eye, a supplier bill for twice the sugar volume they'd need for tonight. Another showed safety inspection dates that didn't align with the calendar on the wall. Small things. The kind of details I was trained to notice. Snooping already. Cole's voice made me turn. My younger brother leaned against the doorframe, his PR smile perfectly calibrated. At 30, he'd mastered the art of looking casual while calculating every angle. Big sister can't help checking if we're all criminals. Just reading what's in plain sight. I moved away from the counter. "That's the problem with you, Ava. You see crime everywhere." He grabbed a champagne flute from a passing tray. "Must be exhausting, suspecting your own family." Before I could respond, our father appeared. Graham Whitaker in his element, silver-haired, commanding, radiating the particular confidence of men who've never faced real consequences. "Ava." "Good." He didn't embrace me, just nodded toward the formal dining room. "We need to discuss something before the guests arrive." The dining table was set for 6, though only 4 of us had gathered. Mallory, my older sister, sat examining her phone with the focused intensity of someone avoiding conflict. Her law degree from Vanderbilt hung invisible around her neck. "Sit," Graham commanded. "I did." My mother glided in, carrying a folder. "We need your signature on a letter of support. Sugar Forge is applying for tax incentives through the Community Development Program. Having a compliance analyst from Civic Integrity Trust vouch for us would carry weight." I opened the folder. The letter was already written, praising Sugar Forge's commitment to providing job training and donated goods to underserved communities. How many community service hours did you actually complete last quarter? The room temperature dropped. That's not your concern, Graham said. It is if my signature's on it. I closed the folder. I can't sign something I haven't verified. Cole laughed, sharp and bitter. There it is, Saint Ava, keeper of all moral high ground. Enough. Lila's smile never wavered, but her eyes went cold. We're family first, Ava. Everything else, including your precious regulations, comes second. Actually, the law comes first. That's literally what compliance means. The silence stretched until Mallory finally spoke. I should check on the setup. She fled, leaving me alone with their disappointment. You've forgotten where you came from, Graham said quietly. Who paid for that education you use against us? I paid you back. Every cent, with interest. I stood. I'll stay for the party, but I won't sign anything. As I left the room, I heard Cole mutter to our parents. She needs to be reminded what family means. I didn't yet know they'd already planned exactly how to deliver that reminder. The pre-party dinner was a masterclass in familial manipulation. We sat in the private dining room while servers hired for the evening, wearing Sugar Forge events uniforms placed course after course of my mother's signature creations. Each dessert came with a story about community impact, about bringing joy to Nashville's underserved populations. The chocolate souffle that would supposedly fund after-school programs. The artisan tart collection that would provide job training for single mothers. All of it gorgeously plated. All of it lies. The community program launches next month, Lila announced, cutting into an opera cake with surgical precision. We've already filed the paperwork showing 800 hours of preparatory community engagement. I set down my fork. 800 hours, with what staff? Cole's been coordinating volunteers, Graham said smoothly. Haven't you, son? Absolutely. Cole's grin was sharp as the cake knife. We've got comprehensive documentation, timesheets, photos, sign-in logs. Very thorough. They were taunting me. I could see it in the way Mallory kept her eyes fixed on her plate, in the way Cole's fingers drummed against his wine glass. They wanted me to challenge them, to make a scene before their guests arrived. Speaking of documentation, Lila produced another folder. We need family unity tonight. The Hendersons are considering a major investment in the expansion. The Weatherbys want to partner on their charity auction. Everyone needs to see we're a cohesive unit. Meaning you smile, you mingle, and you stop investigating everyone like they're criminals. Chung, Graham's voice carried the same tone he'd used when I was 7, explaining why I couldn't keep the stray cat I'd found. Firm, final, dismissive. I don't investigate family, I said quietly. No. Cole leaned forward. Then why did you request public records on Vail Logistics last month? My stomach tightened. Vail Logistics was a shell company I'd stumbled across during a routine compliance check at work. I hadn't connected it to my family yet. That was for a civic integrity project. Bullshit. Cole's PR smile vanished. You've been digging into our finances, looking for dirt. If there's no dirt, what are you worried about? The slap of Graham's palm on the table made the crystal sing. Enough. This is what's going to happen. You're going to attend this party. You're going to support your family's business, and you're going to stop this crusade against us. Or, I kept my voice steady, or we'll make it clear to Nashville's nonprofit community that Ava Whitaker can't even maintain loyalty to her own family. How trustworthy can she be with their finances? The threat hung in the air like the smell of caramelized sugar sweet on the surface, burnt underneath. They'd destroy my reputation, my career, everything I'd built separate from them. Mallory finally looked up. Just sign the letter, Ava. It's not worth this. But it was. Every fraudulent hour they claimed, every tax dollar they stole, it all mattered. These weren't victimless crimes. The money they diverted could have funded real programs, helped actual families. I need air, I said. standing. The terrace overlooked the sprawling lawn where the party tent glowed like a paper lantern. Staff members arranged dessert stations in artistic formations, each one more elaborate than the last. I watched them work, noting the industrial mixers being unloaded, the sheer volume of supplies. Sugar Forge couldn't possibly need this much inventory for one launch. Behind me, the door opened. Cole stepped out, champagne bottle in hand. "Remember when we were kids?" he asked, his voice different now, softer, almost nostalgic. "You taught me how to read profit margins. I was 8. You were 11. You made it a game. I remember. You were always the smart one, the one who understood the numbers." He took a drink straight from the bottle. "But somewhere along the way, you decided we were the enemy. You decided that when you started lying." He laughed, bitter and sharp. "We're not lying. We're surviving, playing the same game everyone else plays. Tax incentives, creative accounting, it's how business works. It's fraud. It's family." He turned to face me fully. "And you're either with us or against us. No middle ground." Through the windows, I could see guests beginning to arrive. Men in tailored suits, women in cocktail dresses, all coming to celebrate the Whitaker empire. My parents stood at the entrance, greeting each arrival with practiced warmth. "They're going to humiliate you tonight," Cole said quietly. "Fair warning. Sister to sister. Oh, wait." He smirked. "Sister to brother. Keep forgetting you care more about strangers than blood." "What are you talking about?" "You'll see. Consider it an intervention. Or maybe—" He raised the bottle in mock salute. "Call it sweet revenge for all those years of judgment." He left me alone on the terrace, watching the party fill with people who would soon witness whatever my family had planned. In my childhood bedroom upstairs, tucked in an old jewelry box, sat a flash drive containing 6 months of research into my family's business practices. I'd started it as due diligence, protecting myself. After tonight, I realized I might need to finish it. The party reached its crescendo at 9:45. 200 guests packed the main ballroom, champagne flowing, cameras flashing, the sweet scent of Sugar Forge's confections mixing with expensive perfume. I stood near the back, nursing the same glass of wine I'd carried for an hour, watching my family work the room like conductors orchestrating a symphony. Then the lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," the voice belonged to Marcus Webb, Cole's friend from his PR firm, now serving as MC. "Before we unveil Sugar Forge's revolutionary new line, the Whitaker family has a special tradition to share." My stomach dropped. There was no family tradition. "Ava Whitaker, would you join us on stage?" Every eye turned to me. My mother smiled from the front row, that practiced smile that never reached her eyes. Graham stood beside her, nodding expectantly. Cole lurked by the sound booth, his expression unreadable in the shadows. I had 2 choices: refuse and make a scene, or play along and see what trap they'd set. I chose knowledge over safety. I walked to the stage. "For those who don't know," Marcus continued, his voice syrupy with false warmth, "Ava is the family's financial genius. She keeps everyone honest." The crowd chuckled. "So it's only fitting that she cuts the ceremonial first slice of our flagship creation." The curtain behind us parted, revealing a 7-tier wedding cake, each layer more elaborate than the last. It stood nearly 6 feet tall, decorated with sugarwork so intricate it looked like lace. This wasn't just a cake, it was an architectural feat, probably worth thousands. "Please, Ava." Marcus handed me an ornate silver knife. "Do the honors." The handle was slippery. I realized why someone had coated it with butter. As I approached the cake, Cole moved closer to his position at the sound booth. My mother's smile widened. Graham raised his champagne glass. I lifted the knife, and that's when Cole leaned into his microphone. "Hey, sis!" His voice boomed through the speakers. "Stop snooping into our business." The mechanism triggered before I could step back. Hidden wires pulled, the entire cake structure tilted, and 7 tiers of buttercream, fondant, and raspberry filling cascaded onto me. Not just a slice, not just a tear, everything. It hit my shoulders first, then crashed down my cream-colored dress, an avalanche of sugar and humiliation. The room exploded in laughter. Not nervous titters, but full-throated, genuine laughter. Someone was filming multiple someones, their phones raised, capturing every second. Through the mess dripping into my eyes, I saw my mother actually applauding. Graham lifted his glass higher in a mock toast. "Sweet revenge," Cole announced into the microphone, his voice carrying over the chaos. "For all those times you tried to audit your own family." Sugar crystals crunched between my teeth. Buttercream slid down my neck. The raspberry filling looked like blood on my dress. But I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't run. Instead, I looked directly into the nearest phone camera and smiled. "Thank you," I said, loud enough for the front rows to hear. My voice stayed perfectly level. "This makes everything so much clearer." I set the butter-slick knife down on the podium with deliberate precision. Then I walked off the stage, each step leaving buttercream footprints on the polished floor. The laughter followed me, but I noticed something else. A few faces weren't laughing. The Henderson matriarch looked appalled. A reporter from the Nashville Business Journal had stopped recording. Her expression troubled. Mallory intercepted me at the bathroom door with towels. "Ava, I didn't know." "Yes, you did." I took the towels without meeting her eyes. "You always know. You just choose to look away." In the bathroom, I locked the door and assessed the damage. My dress was destroyed, obviously. Cake covered me from shoulders to knees. But as I wiped frosting from my face, I saw something in the mirror that my family had missed: determination, crystallized into something harder than sugar work. They thought this was the end. Public humiliation to keep me in line, to remind me of my place. Cole's sweet revenge for daring to question their authority. Through the door, I could hear Marcus back on the microphone, smoothing over the incident as a playful family tradition, redirecting attention to the actual product launch. The crowd was buying it, their laughter shifting to anticipation for the next act. I pulled out my phone, careful to keep it clean of frosting. The video was already posted on 3 different social media accounts. "Whitaker family cake prank goes viral." One caption read, "By morning, everyone in Nashville would see it." Good. Let them see. Because while they were laughing, while my parents were congratulating themselves on putting me in my place, they'd made a critical error. They'd shown me exactly who they were, in front of witnesses, on camera. They'd demonstrated that cruelty came naturally to them, that humiliation was a tool they wielded without hesitation. And if they could do this to family, what were they capable of in business? I cleaned myself as best I could, changed into the emergency outfit I always kept in my car, and slipped out the service entrance. Behind me, the party continued, my family basking in their perceived victory. At home, I pulled out the flash drive from my jewelry box and opened the files I'd been collecting. Invoices, tax documents, inspection reports, pieces of a puzzle I'd been too reluctant to assemble. No more reluctance. No more family loyalty. They wanted war. They'd just declared it in buttercream and raspberry filling, and I knew exactly how to fight back. The sugar smell wouldn't leave my hair. 3 showers, clarifying shampoo, vinegar rinse, nothing worked. At 2:15, I sat at my kitchen table with wet hair and laptop screens casting blue light across scattered papers. The remnants of my family's cruelty clung to me like perfume, but it kept me focused. Every time I smelled buttercream, I remembered their laughter. The documents I'd casually noticed at the estate were just the surface. Once I started pulling threads, the whole fabric unraveled. Sugar Forge Events had claimed 800 community service hours last quarter. Their actual employee timesheets, which I accessed through a public records request I'd filed weeks earlier for an unrelated civic integrity project, showed those same employees working paid events during the supposed volunteer hours, but that was small time compared to what I found next. Vale Logistics LLC. The company Cole had accused me of investigating appeared repeatedly in Sugarforge's expense reports. Vendor payments for specialty ingredients at 3 times market rate. Transportation costs for deliveries that, according to GPS records from their commercial fleet insurance, never happened. The logistics company's registered address, a mailbox at a UPS store downtown, its sole proprietor, Cole Whitaker, hidden behind 2 layers of DBAs. I cross-referenced dates. Every major charity event Sugarforge claimed to have supplied coincided with massive Vale Logistics invoices. The donated goods were being sold to their own shell company first, inflating the tax-deductible donation values by 300%. The kitchen inspection reports told another story. Sugarforge's commercial facility had failed 3 consecutive health inspections violations ranging from improper temperature controls to pest activity. But somehow, they'd received a clean certificate just in time for their launch. The inspector's signature was illegible, but the inspection date, a Sunday, when the office was closed. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Saw what happened tonight? Disgusting behavior. I have information you might want. A friend at the Tennessee Department of Revenue. I stared at the message. It could be a trap, someone testing my reaction. Or it could be a gift. I responded carefully. Thank you for reaching out. I'm interested in any information related to business compliance in Nashville. The reply came immediately. A single attachment, an internal memo flagging Sugarforge events for audit based on anomalies in reported charitable deductions. Dated 3 weeks ago. The audit had been mysteriously canceled 2 days later, marked resolved internally. Someone at the state level was protecting them. I pulled up the campaign finance database. Graham Whitaker had donated generously to several state representatives, including one who sat on the taxation committee. Lila served on the boards of 3 nonprofits that received mysterious funding increases right after Sugarforge got its tax breaks. The web of influence spread like spilled syrup, sticky and transparent once you knew where to look. By 4:30 a.m., I had 72 pages of evidence. Financial fraud, tax evasion, health code violations, bribery. The Whitaker empire was built on forged documents and fake charity. The community programs they touted were ghosts, existing only in paperwork. The money meant for actual help had been funneled back into their own pockets through Cole's shadow company, but evidence wasn't enough. I'd learned that watching other cases at Civic Integrity, you needed momentum, public pressure, and most importantly, timing. I created separate encrypted folders for each agency that would need documentation. The Tennessee Attorney General's office would get the tax fraud and fake charity evidence. The health department would receive the inspection violations and bribery documentation. The IRS would see everything related to Vale Logistics and the money laundering. Then I thought about the viral video of my humiliation. By morning, it would have thousands of views. People would see me covered in cake, my family laughing. The narrative was already set spoiled rich family play's cruel prank. Unless I changed it, I opened a new document and began typing Timeline of Whitaker Business Irregularities for immediate review. Each entry included dates, amounts, and document references. No editorializing, no emotion, just facts laid out like ingredients in a recipe. The kind of document that made investigators salivate. At the bottom, I added a note. Additional documentation available upon formal request. Videos of on-site operations during claimed charity events show no charitable activity. Employee testimony regarding forced falsification of volunteer hours can be provided under whistleblower protection. My phone rang at 5:45 a.m. Mallory. Don't do whatever you're thinking of doing, she said without preamble. Did you know about Vale Logistics? Silence. Then, I'm their lawyer. I had to set it up. Jesus. Mallory, I tried to keep you out of it. I told them targeting you was a mistake. Targeting me? The cake was planned. For weeks. Cole pitched it as a viral marketing stunt. Humble the uptight sister. Get sympathy for the family brand. Dad loved it. She sounded tired, defeated. They've got a social media manager ready to spin it 15 different ways by noon. They won't get the chance. Ava, Please, just let it go. Take a vacation. I'll make sure they leave you alone. Like you made sure last night. She hung up. I looked at my evidence folders, then at the clock. Government offices opened at 8 a.m. That gave me 2 hours to make copies, prepare USB drives, and draft anonymous submission cover letters. But I wouldn't submit them yet. No, I had something better in mind, something that would make their sweet revenge taste like ash. The Sugar Forge Grand Gala was in 3 weeks, the biggest event of their fiscal year, where they'd announce their expansion and lock in investor funding. That's when I'd serve my revenge. Not with cake, but with consequences. Cold, legal, and impossible to laugh off. 3 weeks to orchestrate justice. I approached it like a compliance audit, methodical, documented, and absolutely airtight. The beauty of working at Civic Integrity Trust was that investigating financial irregularities was literally my job. Every inquiry I made could be justified as routine due diligence. First, the anonymous tips. I used a VPN and encrypted email to send packages to the Tennessee Attorney General's office and the Health Department. But I didn't send everything just enough to trigger mandatory investigation protocols. A few forged invoices here, discrepancies in volunteer hours there, breadcrumbs that investigators would have to follow. The timeline was critical. State agencies had specific response requirements: 10 business days for initial review, 5 days for determining investigation merit, another 5 for scheduling. I calculated backward from the gala date, October 28th, and submitted accordingly. The investigations would go active right before the event, but notifications wouldn't arrive until that very day. Next came the media preparation. I couldn't approach journalists directly without exposing myself, but I could ensure they'd be watching. Through Civic Integrity's press list, I pitched a positive story about Sugar Forge's community impact to 3 investigative reporters, suggesting they attend the gala for a major announcement about charitable giving in Tennessee. I knew these journalists. They'd smell the fraud like blood in the water. The masterstroke was hiring Fairglass Media. They were a legitimate documentary crew specializing in culinary events. My contract with them, signed under Civic Integrity's educational outreach budget, commissioned a case study on event companies' community impact. Completely above board. The fact that they'd be filming at the exact moment everything imploded, happy coincidence. But I needed something more. Evidence was good, investigations were better, but public revelation would be perfect. That's when I remembered the LED screens. Sugar Forge had rented massive displays for the gala, planning to showcase their Community Heroes montage. The rental company, Nashville Audio Visual Solutions, was a Civic Integrity vendor. We'd audited them last year, found them clean, and I'd maintained a good relationship with their technical director, James. I need a favor, I told him over coffee, a week before the gala. We're creating a presentation about corporate responsibility. Can you help me test it on your system? Same model you're installing at the Whitaker Gala. Sure, James said. Always happy to help Civic Integrity. You guys kept us out of trouble with that audit. When do you need it? How about the morning of the 28th? I could swing by your warehouse. Make sure everything's compatible before your crew heads to the venue. He agreed. I'd have access to the system hours before the event. The hardest part was maintaining normalcy. I went to work, filed reports, attended meetings. When colleagues asked about the viral cake video, I laughed it off as family being family. When my mother called, demanding I publicly support them on social media, I claimed I was too busy with quarter-end reports. When Cole texted threatening messages about knowing my place, I archived them all. Evidence. Always more evidence. 5 days before the gala, the first domino fell. My anonymous contact at the Department of Revenue sent another message. Audit reopened. Investigators very interested in Vail Logistics connection. They're pulling 3 years of records. 4 days before the Health Department contacted Sugar Forge about routine follow-up on recent inspections. They scheduled a surprise visit for October 28th at 6 p.m., right during the gala's cocktail hour. 3 days before the Attorney General's office quietly filed subpoenas for Sugar Forge's financial records. The documents would be served October 28th at 7 p.m. during the dinner service. 2 days before I finalized my presentation, spreadsheets showing the money flow from Sugar Forge to Vail Logistics and back, time-stamped photos of empty venues during supposed charity events, employee affidavits about falsified volunteer hours obtained through completely legal means, as they were public records from labor disputes, all formatted for maximum clarity on LED screens. The night before the gala, I couldn't sleep, not from nerves, but from anticipation. I checked my materials one last time, USB drives with the presentation, backed up 3 times, documentation packets for any journalists who wanted hard copies, a script for the voiceover, recorded by a text-to-speech program to keep it neutral and anonymous. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Mallory. They know something's wrong. Dad's been getting calls. He's paranoid. About what? He doesn't know. Just says something feels off. Cole hired extra security for tomorrow. Security can't stop the truth. Mallory? Ava, I'm begging you. Whatever you're planning. You could have stopped this. When they planned the cake. When they built the shell company. When they stole from actual charities. You had 100 chances to do the right thing. I'm trying to protect you. They'll destroy you if you go after them. I thought about the cake in my hair, the laughter, Cole's voice booming sweet revenge while our parents applauded. They already tried, I said. Tomorrow. I return the favor. How you're not even invited to the gala? She was right. They'd specifically excluded me from the guest list, probably expecting me to hide in shame. But I didn't need to be there. The investigators would arrive on schedule, the journalists would be watching, the cameras would be rolling, and at exactly 8:15 p.m., when Graham stood to give his keynote about Sugar Forge's commitment to community service, those LED screens would come alive with the truth. I don't need an invitation, I told Mallory. Justice doesn't RSVP. I hung up and set my alarm for 5 a.m. Tomorrow. James would let me into his warehouse to test my presentation. The same presentation that would somehow, mysteriously, override the scheduled programming during the gala's pivotal moment. They'd humiliated me with sugar and laughter. I'd destroy them with spreadsheets and truth. Sweet revenge, indeed. The Whitaker Grand Gala began at 7 p.m. sharp. I watched from my apartment, monitoring social media feeds as Nashville's elite arrived in their finest. Sugar Forge events had transformed the Omni Hotel's ballroom into a wonderland of spun sugar and gold leaf. Every detail screamed money and success. The LED screens flanking the stage cycled through images of happy families, presumably helped by Sugar Forge's charitable work. All fabricated, all lies. At 7:20, my phone showed a text from James at Nashville Audio Visual. Test file loaded perfectly this morning. Systems running smooth. Weird though there's a scheduled override at 8:15. Was that you? I didn't respond. Plausible deniability was crucial. The Fairglass media crew was already inside, their cameras capturing what they thought would be a puff piece about corporate philanthropy. The Nashville Business Journal reporter I'd contacted posted a photo from the cocktail hour. Big announcement expected at Sugar Forge Gala. Graham Whitaker hints at revolutionary community partnership. At 7:45, I opened my laptop to the remote access program. James didn't know I'd watched him enter the system credentials during our morning test. He was a good man, and I felt guilty about using his trust. But good people sometimes had to be protected from their own innocence. Through the event's live social media feed, I watched my father take the stage for preliminary remarks. Graham Whitaker commanded the room, his silver hair gleaming under the lights. Tonight, we celebrate not just Sugar Forge's success, but our commitment to Tennessee's future. Applause rippled through the crowd. My mother stood beside him, radiant in designer velvet. Cole worked the AV booth, ensuring every moment was captured for their marketing machine. At 8 p.m., the health department inspectors arrived. I saw it on Cole's Instagram story he was filming the crowd when 2 officials in Tennessee Department of Health windbreakers entered through the service door. His camera quickly swung away, but I caught his muttered curse. 8:05. The Attorney General's process servers entered the main ballroom. They were subtle, professional, waiting by the walls in dark suits. Most guests wouldn't notice them yet. 8:10. Graham began his keynote. Sugar Forge Events isn't just a business, it's a mission. Every cake we create, every event we cater, generates resources for those in need. My fingers hovered over the laptop keyboard. The presentation was loaded, ready to deploy. But I waited. Timing was everything. This year alone, Graham continued, we've contributed over 800 hours of community service. There it was. The lie, stated publicly, on camera. 8:14. Our partnership with Vail Logistics has streamlined our charitable giving, allowing us to triple our impact. My breath caught. He was actually admitting the connection to the shell company. The hubris was staggering. 8:15 exactly, I pressed enter. The LED screens flickered. The happy family montage vanished, replaced by a single slide, Sugar Forge Events, a case study in charitable fraud. Graham froze mid-sentence. The audience murmured, confused. Cole rushed toward the AV booth, but the system was locked. The presentation would run its full course. The next slide appeared, a spreadsheet showing Vail Logistics invoices beside Sugar Forge's tax filings. Numbers highlighted in red showed the inflation 300% markups, all claimed as charitable deductions. The mechanical voiceover began, neutral and devastating. Public records indicate systematic falsification of charitable contributions. Vail Logistics LLC, owned by Cole Whitaker, received $3.7 million in payments from Sugar Forge Events last fiscal year. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones appeared, recording everything. The presentation continued relentlessly. Photographs of empty venues during supposed charity events. Health inspection failures covered up with bribes, the amounts, dates, and inspector names clearly displayed. Timesheets proving the volunteer hours never happened. The 800 hours of community service claimed this quarter, the voiceover stated, correspond to dates when all Sugar Forge employees were working paid private events, as confirmed by payroll records. Graham grabbed the microphone. This is sabotage. Someone turn this off. But the health department inspectors were already moving toward the service areas. The AG's process servers approached the stage with papers in hand. The journalists pressed closer, their cameras capturing every second of the unfolding disaster. The most damning slide appeared Graham's own emails, obtained through the public records request, discussing how to maximize the tax benefit by running donations through Vail Logistics first, his digital signature on falsified inspection certificates, his approval of the inflated volunteer hours. My mother tried to maintain composure, but her practiced smile cracked as she recognized her own signature on fraudulent documents now displayed 40 feet wide. Cole had abandoned the AV booth entirely, his face cycling between rage and panic as he realized the system was completely locked. Every attempt to override just resulted in an error message, sweet revenge in progress. I'd programmed that myself. A little poetic justice. The presentation's final slide showed the total $7.2 million in fraudulent tax deductions over 3 years, money stolen from legitimate charitable programs, resources diverted from actual need. Full documentation has been provided to relevant authorities. The voiceover concluded. Investigation is underway. That's when the process servers reached Graham. Mr. Whitaker, we have subpoenas for all Sugar Forge Events financial records. You'll need to come with us. The health inspectors emerged from the kitchen, already on their phones. I could imagine what they'd found the same violations that had been covered up, still unaddressed. The crowd erupted. Some fled toward exits, not wanting to be associated with the scandal. Others pressed closer, phones high, capturing the mighty Whitaker's fall. The Fairglass media crew pivoted seamlessly from puff piece to exposé, their cameras catching every angle of the collapse. Through it all, The LED screens returned to their original programming those fake happy families Sugar Forge claimed to help. But now, everyone knew the truth behind the sugar-coated lies. My phone buzzed with notifications. The video was already viral, but for a different reason than 3 weeks ago. Sugar Forge fraud exposed at OWN Gala. Whitaker Empire crumbles live on stage. Sweet revenge how a cake company got its just desserts. The poetic symmetry wasn't lost on anyone. They'd humiliated me with cake. I'd destroyed them with their own crimes. The last image I saw before closing my laptop was Cole, standing alone in the ruins of the party, staring at those LED screens with the dawning realization that his own sweet revenge had triggered something far sweeter. I arrived at the Omni at 8:45 p.m., wearing the same cream-colored dress I'd ordered to replace the one they'd destroyed. No stains this time. No buttercream armor needed. Just me, walking through the chaos I'd orchestrated. The ballroom was in complete disarray. Half the guests had fled, the other half clustered in shocked groups, whispering behind manicured hands. The AG's team had cordoned off the administrative tables, boxing up documents. Health inspectors sealed the kitchen with yellow tape. The Fairglass media crew followed every movement, their cameras hungry for the story's climax. I walked through it all like a ghost they hadn't expected to see. Cole spotted me first. His face went white, then red, cycling through emotions before landing on rage. "You," he snarled, starting toward me. "Me," I agreed, standing my ground. "You destroyed everything. Do you have any idea what you've done? Exactly what you taught me. Little brother, sweet revenge." I kept my voice level, professional. Though mine came with documentation. Graham's voice boomed across the ballroom before Cole could respond. "Ava." He stood near the stage, flanked by lawyers who were desperately trying to keep him from talking. "You treacherous, careful." I interrupted. "There are cameras everywhere. And unlike 3 weeks ago, I don't think the audience finds family cruelty quite as entertaining anymore." The crowd parted as I walked toward the stage, every step deliberate, measured. I felt their eyes, some horrified, others oddly impressed. Mrs. Henderson, who'd looked appalled at the cake incident, now watched with what might have been approval. My mother stood frozen by the podium, her perfect composure finally shattered. "How could you?" she whispered when I reached them. "How could I not?" I pulled out my phone, showed them the video from 3 weeks ago. Me, covered in cake, their laughter echoing. "You taught me that public humiliation was acceptable family behavior. I'm just a better student than you expected." "This is different," Graham spat. "This is betrayal." "No." Betrayal was stealing $7 million meant for actual charity. Betrayal was putting my professional reputation at risk to cover your crimes. Betrayal was planning for weeks to humiliate your own daughter for entertainment. I stepped onto the stage, approaching the microphone. The room fell silent. 3 weeks ago, I began, my voice carrying clearly. My family thought it would be amusing to dump an entire wedding cake on me. My brother called it sweet revenge for my supposed crime of having professional integrity. I looked directly at Cole, who stood paralyzed by the AV booth. "You were right about one thing. Cole, revenge can be sweet. But justice?" I smiled, the same smile I'd given the cameras that night. "Justice has a much better aftertaste." "You're done in Nashville," Graham growled, his lawyer frantically trying to pull him away. "I'll make sure you never work again." "With what influence?" I gestured to the investigators boxing up his files. "Your tax fraud, your bribes, your shell companies, or maybe with the campaign contributions you made with stolen charitable funds." The AG's lead investigator approached the stage. "Ms. Whitaker, we'll need you to come in for a statement." "Of course." I handed him a drive from my pocket. "This contains everything. 3 years of documentation, all obtained through legal public records requests and whistleblower testimonies." "You wore a wire," Cole's voice cracked from across the room. "I didn't need to." You documented everything yourselves: emails, invoices, even Instagram posts bragging about your brilliant tax strategies. You were so proud of your schemes. You created a perfect evidence trail. The health department supervisor joined us on stage. Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker, we're shutting down your commercial kitchen pending full investigation. The violations we've found tonight, they go back years. My mother finally found her voice. Ava, please, we're family. Family. I tasted the word like expired frosting. Family doesn't forge documents with my name. Family doesn't sabotage my career. Family doesn't celebrate my humiliation. I reached for the cake knife still sitting on the display table, the same style they'd used that night, though this one wasn't coated in butter. I held it up, letting the light catch the silver. You know what the difference is between your revenge and mine. I set the knife down gently, precisely. Yours was performance. Mine was justice. Yours was cruel. Mine was necessary. Yours was personal. Mine was just business, exactly how you taught me to be. The lead investigator cleared his throat. Mr. Whitaker, Mr. Cole Whitaker, we need you both to come with us now. As they were led away, Cole turned back one last time. His PR smile was gone, replaced by something raw and defeated. Was it worth it destroying your own family? You destroyed yourselves, I said simply. I just provided the accountability you've been avoiding for years. And to answer your question, yes. Every investigation, every spreadsheet, every piece of evidence was worth it to stop you from stealing one more dollar meant for people who actually need help. The ballroom had nearly emptied now, just investigators, media, and a few lingering guests. Mallory stood by the exit, her face unreadable. They'll be charged, she said quietly as I approached. Criminal fraud, tax evasion, bribery. Dad and Cole are looking at serious time. Mom, too, probably. And you, I'm cooperating fully, trading testimony for immunity. She paused. You knew I would. I hoped you would. We stood there, sisters on opposite sides of a war that had started long before tonight. For what it's worth, Mallory said. That cake thing was cruel. I should have stopped it. You should have stopped a lot of things. She nodded, accepting the judgment. What will you do now? I looked back at the stage where everything had unraveled. The LED screens were dark. The cake table sat empty. The sweet smell of sugar had been replaced by the sharp scent of consequence. Continue my work at Civic Integrity. Help real charities. Make sure people like them can't steal from those who need it most. I met her eyes. What I've always done, just without the family guilt. As I walked through the ballroom doors into the cool Nashville night, I heard the final piece fall into place, sirens approaching, blue and red lights painting the hotel entrance. The authorities Graham had bought, the system he'd gamed, the city he'd charmed, they were all here now, but not as allies. They were here for justice, and it tasted nothing like cake. The Fairglass media crew was packing up their equipment when they spotted me. Their director, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia, approached with her camera operator still rolling. Ms. Whitaker, could we get a statement? I could have walked away. Should have. Probably. But something made me stop. 1 minute, I said. Patricia nodded to her camera operator, who adjusted the frame. The LED screens behind us still displayed their final message. Sweet revenge isn't a joke when it's evidence. 3 weeks ago, I said to the camera, my family staged what they called a harmless prank. Tonight, the consequences of their real actions, years of fraud, theft, and deception, finally came to light. The cake they dumped on me was meant to humiliate me into silence. Instead, it clarified everything. Do you regret exposing your family? Patricia asked. I regret that there was something to expose. I regret that money meant for homeless shelters, food banks, and after-school programs ended up in their pockets. Mostly. I regret staying silent as long as I did. The camera operator lowered his equipment as investigators carried the last boxes past us. Through the glass doors, I could see Cole being guided into an unmarked sedan. his hands cuffed in front of him. My father sat in another car, his silver hair visible through the window, his empire reduced to evidence tags and case numbers. "Ms. Whitaker," Patricia said off camera, "what you did tonight that took incredible courage." "No," I corrected. "Courage would have been stopping them years ago. This was just overdue." I left them to their footage and walked to my car. The parking garage was nearly empty, my footsteps echoing off concrete. As I reached my vehicle, my phone buzzed. "Mallory again. Just wanted you to know the lawyers say you're clear. Every piece of evidence you provided was legally obtained. They can't touch you." "I know," I said. I was careful. "You were brilliant." A pause. "I'm sorry, Ava, for all of it." I sat in my car for a moment after hanging up, watching the hotel's lights reflect off the windshield. The last time I'd been here, I'd left covered in buttercream and shame. Tonight, I left clean. The drive home was quiet. No radio, no music, just the hum of tires on asphalt. Nashville's skyline glittered in my rearview mirror, unchanged despite the earthquake that had just shaken one of its prominent families. My apartment felt different when I entered. The papers that had covered my table for weeks were gone, filed away as evidence. The laptop that had been my weapon sat closed and peaceful. The air didn't smell like sugar anymore. I poured myself a glass of wine, a good bottle I'd been saving, and stood on my balcony. Below, the city went about its Friday night rituals, oblivious to the drama that had just unfolded. Tomorrow, it would be headlines. Tonight, it was just another October evening in Tennessee. My phone lit up with notifications. The video was everywhere. Breaking Whitaker family fraud exposed at own gala. Sugar Forge events under federal investigation. The sweetest revenge, how one woman brought down a Nashville empire. But the message that mattered came from an unknown number. "Ms. Whitaker, this is Director Chen from the Nashville Food Bank. We've just been informed that the funds recovered from the Sugar Forge investigation will be distributed to the charities they claimed to support. Because of you, we'll be able to feed 3,000 more families this winter. Thank you." I read it twice, then deleted it. No trail, no evidence, no connection, just the knowledge that those stolen millions would finally reach the people they were meant to help. At 11:55 p.m., I raised my glass to the city lights. 3 weeks ago, they'd laughed as sugar and cream dripped down my dress. They'd called it sweet revenge for the crime of having integrity. They were right about one thing: revenge could be sweet. But justice didn't need sugar to leave a lasting taste. I finished my wine, went inside, and closed the door on the Whitaker chapter of my life. No dramatic speech, no tears, no looking back. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing that sometimes the best revenge isn't personal at all. It's simply letting the truth do what truth does best: destroy lies, one document at a time. The city slept. The investigation would continue. The Whitaker empire would crumble into indictments and plea deals, and I would go back to work Monday morning, reviewing applications, checking numbers, protecting the honest from the corrupt. Because that's what I did. That's who I was. Ava Whitaker, compliance analyst, destroyer of empires built on buttercream and fraud, the woman who turned their sweet revenge into something far more lasting: justice, served at exactly the right temperature. Thank you for listening to this story of betrayal, justice, and the sweetest kind of revenge. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. What would you have done in Ava's situation? Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting justice.